All right, so it is October already, and it's 84 degrees outside, so it doesn't feel like we're in fall, and it's time to start thinking about planning for next year already. And so today's class, what I thought I would do for the next couple of sessions as we head into the fourth quarter is talk about life planning, business planning, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, everyone familiar with this book called Living Forward?
Michael. Of course, I know who Michael Hyatt is. I don't know the book.
You don't know the book? Okay.
No.
So I'm going to be basing this off our conversation today off of this book called Living Forward. It's written by Michael Hyatt, Daniel Harkavy, Harkavy, and you can get this anywhere you can, any bookstore or online. And Michael Hyatt is Dana. Are you familiar with Michael Hyatt? Have you heard of him?
No.
Okay, so he's basically, I would call him maybe a guru of leadership. He has a blog, excellent real estate blog, not real estate, excuse me, excellent blog. It's about leadership, about life, very good, very positive things in there. And so he had, maybe about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he had on his website a free download. If you give them your email address, and they'll give you a free download. And what that download was a PDF of what he called a life plan outline. And so I got the download. I went through it, and I thought it was a very helpful process, because we hear of it in business. We hear about business planning, and we're familiar with that process, but we don't typically think about having a life plan. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And one of the concepts that he talks about in the book here, in that first chapter, is what he calls drift. What do you think about the word drift? I mean, when you think of drift or drifting?
Aimless.
What did you say, England?
Aimless.
Gotcha, aimless. Yeah, aimless. Okay.
Yeah, off target.
Yeah, off target. And so what he's talking about, the concept of drifting, or aimless, off target. You're absolutely right. Is that I think we can experience that in life, is that we tend to get off target. You get busy, you're hustling, you're going here, you're there, you have other obligations, and before you know it, you look back and say, well, this is kind of where I was thinking I was going, and I'm here in a different point. Or maybe you don't really think about where you're going to begin with, and like you said, aimlessly, you're just going through life, and perhaps missing out on something that could be better. So that's what he talks about in this concept of drift and drifting, and it can have some serious consequences, not only for you, but for those that you love and those that are counting on you. In some situations, drifting can be flat out dangerous, so it's important to understand the consequences so you can avoid the problem and take corrective action now. I think one of the examples he uses in the book is when he was out with his wife, I think, snorkeling, and got caught in a riptide. And so that's a serious drifting. You're getting sucked out into the ocean, and it can be a dangerous situation in that situation. So that's just an example of drifting. And there are some consequences of that. Confusion. Maybe you just lost perspective, and you're not real clear of where you are or where you need to go and what's next. Expense can be a consequence. Making a mistake can be very costly in life. You can have lost opportunity, and maybe you're missing out on certain opportunities that come along because you're not thinking about it or not in the right perspective. Pain. I mean, there's definitely pain that can happen as a result of drifting, and regrets. So maybe looking back on life and say, well, I wish I could have done that, or I wish I had done better, or maybe spent more time with the children or things like that. So these are all things that regrets that can happen as well. Any other thoughts on drifting?
No.
Okay. All right, so the book has 3 goals, and just want to give you a quick overview of what those are. So number 1 is to become aware of your current location. So what they want to do is help you to see where you are in relation to where you want to be. And if you can start with that, just doing some assessment of where you are now, where you want to be, that's a really helpful place to start. And then deciding where you want to go. And then working towards that destination. That's the next step. So that these are all things that we'll go over with the life plan process. So what is a life plan? That's what we'll talk about next. Have anyone ever heard the term life plan before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and what comes to mind when you think about a life plan?
Setting goals and outlining them.
Great, yeah, setting goals and outlining them. I think a lot of times that term life plan is used in the financial sector when they're developing financial plans for people or retirement plans. Like, we're not really going to be looking at that aspect of it too much, but yeah, it's having a plan, outlining what your goals are. And life plan is basically just a short written document. Usually it's 5 to maybe 10 pages, 15 pages. It's created for you and by you, and it describes how you want to be remembered. And it articulates your personal priorities. And it also provides specific actions necessary to take you from where you are to where you want to be in every major area of your life. So it's kind of like a living document that you can tweak and adjust it as you go. You can look at it on a weekly basis, daily basis, monthly, whatever, yearly, and just look at it and assess and evaluate. So I'm just going to share my screen here with you, and then we'll take a look at the PDF. And what I'll do is I'll email this PDF out to everybody, and that way if you don't have this, you'll be able to take a look at the PDF. Okay. Okay, can you see the PDF?
Yep, it's there.
Those of you online? Okay.
Yep. So
this is the PDF download, and I'm just going to kind of go through a couple of things on here. So let's just get right into it. So what you want to have with the PDF is with this outline here is, you said it's a simple plan. It's short. It consists of 3 main components: outcomes, priorities, and action plans. So the first part of that is going to be, how do you want to be remembered? So how do you want to be remembered? So if you picture yourself, if you were at your funeral and people were coming up and talking about you, how do you want them to describe you, or what do you want them to say about you? And then you break this down based on who it is. So okay, how do I want what do I want my spouse to say about me? What would I want my kids to say about me? What about my colleagues? What would I want them to be? What would I want them to remember about me? Maybe it's people from church or from family members, or so you can actually break that out into categories. So, for example, this is a sample that Michael Hyatt wrote in this PDF here. Gail, is his wife, says, "I want Gail to remember how I loved her, understood her, and helped her to accomplish her dreams, and I want her to remember specific times that we shared together, times we laughed, times we cried, times we spent discussing things that were important to both of us, and times we just held one another and watched the sunset." So that was how he wanted to be remembered by his wife. Now, colleagues, that's going to look a little different. For colleagues, I want my colleagues to remember my servant leadership, my integrity, my humility, my commitment to having fun. I want them to remember how much they learned and grew as a result of knowing me. Most of all, I want them to remember how I stood for the greatness in them and empowered them to accomplish far more than they ever thought possible. So that's the first component of this life plan, is just to think about how do you want to be remembered. Any comments on that? Questions?
I think that's a great idea to think about that, because sometimes I think about that when I do attend a funeral. I think, whoa, I wonder what people would think about me when I pass away. So it's sort of a morbid thought, but it does sort of make you to think about it. Makes you think like you want to improve areas in your life so that people will say positive things about you.
Right. It's a way to kind of evaluate, oh, this is how I'd like to be remembered, and maybe I'm not fulfilling all these things right now, but this is how where I'd like to end up at,
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's hard to think about this, and it helps really think through this whole process of the life plan. So yeah, definitely worthwhile to do that. Now we'll get later into this PDF. You'll see that there's actually a process where he recommends that you take almost like a retreat, where you're actually spending a day or a half a day just to go through this process. So it is something that you really need to take some time to think about and go through it. It's not something you can just throw together in an hour. It's going to take a little bit of investment of time to do it. The next step is to evaluate. So we talked about the first step would be, how do I want to be remembered? And then the next step will be priorities. So what they talk about, the concept is of life accounts, like you have different accounts in your life. So you need to identify your priorities or your life accounts, and like a collection of bank accounts. I've got my savings, I've got my checking, I've got this account for this, for insurance, and this for. So we're going to divide up, prioritize your life accounts. For example, your career might be going great, but your health account is overdrawn, like a bank account. So you're getting too much junk food, or you're not exercising regularly. So you can have one account that's overdrawn and another account that's suffering. Or perhaps you're in great shape physically, but your marriage has gone flat, or you and your spouse have become like strangers living in the same house. So this is a way to really evaluate what are your priorities. So the question is, your goal is simply to answer the question, what is important to me? And so I'm going to give you a couple of example accounts, and this, of course, will be different for everybody. But a good example, a good way to start this would be God, self, and then maybe your spouse next, children, friends, career. Could be your finances, could be next, could be ministry or other goals that are important to you. So I like to start with God as number one, and if you're a Christian, I think all of us on the call here are. God obviously comes first, and Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." So that's got to be the number one priority, because our earth is just a temporary residence. So we want to make sure we're prioritizing what's going to last forever. That would be our relationship with God. So He's the ultimate priority. Until He is first, everything else will seem out of kilter. So we have to keep that relationship and that priority number one. And then what do you think the second priority would be?
Yeah, the self, like I see it's talking about the flight attendant in the airplane. The first thing they tell you to do is get yourself squared away first before you help others.
Mm.
So that's important.
What he is advocating is that the next priority would be yourself.
All right.
Because you can't help your spouse or your family or your children if you can't help yourself first. So it's an interesting thing, because we tend to think, oh, I don't want to be selfish. And you're not really in this case, because your goal is to take care of all of your other priorities, and if you can't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of the other priorities. So that could be a physical physical wellness. It could be your mental, emotional state, or maybe just even a matter of, okay, I'm not getting enough sleep. You can not getting enough sleep, and that can affect your other areas of your life and how your ability to take care of your other priorities. So I think we tend to think of and even where we're in the Keller Williams Realty priorities is God, family, and then business. But really, there should be a self in there first, and business may not actually be number 3 in your priority. Business might be down the road. It might be number 7 or number 5. So it's not always it's not so simple as just the 3 categories. We have more categories of priorities than that, and self should be the second one. Anyone disagree with that?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So just give me a couple of examples of that. So if I don't feed myself spiritually, and then I don't have the spiritual resources necessary to edify others, and this is one reason that we read the Bible and pray daily. If I don't look after my own health and I become sick, then I'm not much use to my family or my colleagues or my clients. So this is why it's important for the nutrition to eat sound food, eat good food. It's got to be as healthy as possible with your diet as well. If I don't take time for reading great books, if I don't have intellectual resources that I need to enrich others, that can be a negative there. And if I don't make the effort to work through my own emotional wounds, I end up reacting to others instead of being a positive, being in a position to minister to them. So this is why counseling, therapy, things like that can be positive for people as well. If I don't get sufficient rest, I mentioned that you're grumpy, you have a bad attitude, you didn't get enough sleep the night before, so that could be have a negative effect on the rest of your priorities. So some people put themselves at the bottom of their priority list, and what Michael Hyatt's saying here is, I think that is a false and very dangerous piety. We're in a much better position to serve others when our basic spiritual, emotional, physical needs are met. So, and then you can even break down that self account into 3 sub accounts, which would be your health, your growth, and your rest. So that's a great way to think about it. Now, what do you think you'd put next in your priority list? If we can agree, we've got God, we've got ourselves. What's next?
Spouse.
Yeah, I would put the spouse next. It'd be easy to lump spouse and children into one category. You could make that one category family, but they are distinct categories. How you relate and prioritize your wife and should be a priority over your children. Your wife or your husband. So that should be the priority. The spouse would be next. So the most important gift you can give your children is to what?
Love their parent. Love the spouse.
Love the spouse. Right. Yeah. Especially today when you see an age where there's so many broken homes. That's common. The marriages are lacking. So this is a really important priority to keep. So what does that mean from a practical standpoint? How could you? Well, I'm going to hide the notes here so you guys can't cheat. So what are some practical things that we can do to maintain that relationship with our spouses and keep that a priority?
Communication on a regular basis between the spouses.
What would that look like?
It could look like having dinner together every night and discussing, the day's activities. Could be that.
Yeah.
Or it could be done in the morning. Depends on work schedules and things like that.
Good.
So it's a time for regular communication.
Yes.
So you're not like 2 ships passing in the middle of the night,
Now, I got to ask you, how long have you've been married now?
47 years.
Yeah.
47 years. Dana,
Yes.
How about you? How long have you been married? Oh, she must be muted. Okay. So
Wait, I'm here. I'm here.
Over there. Okay.
Almost 38. So.
Almost 38. So we've got some good people to take advice from. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dana?
No, I have a, the commitment has to be there, the foresight has to be there, and you have to project it. You have to see where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think at different stages of life, this could look different. I mean, I like to try to, for our marriages, try to do a date night every weekly date night, because that's, we have kids and it's harder to just sit down and have some time to time to talk. So, having a date night is important.
Yep, and it all changes.
Yeah. So the next priority level, I think we can all agree, would be the children. I think probably everyone would be in agreement with that. So the children. Now, if you don't have children, of course, that's not going to be your next priority. So, so sometimes it's hard balancing that work and family life, and sometimes the children can get neglected and put to the bottom of that list. And so what we want to do is try to, if that is the case, and that we want to make that a temporary situation, not a permanent situation. So there are times in different stages of life where you're going to be working more and you're not going to have as much family time. So we want to make sure that the children know that they're a priority, they're important as well. So like you mentioned having dinner with your spouse, so that could be true. Just making sure, okay, I'm going to get home in time for dinner so that we can have dinner as a family. So that could be something you could do to make that a priority. So, any other thoughts on that and helping to with the children being a priority?
Well, I think all of it's good, but being in real estate, it's very tempting to put the customer, the client, ahead of your family because we're afraid of losing business. We might be struggling paying the bills, so we might skip being with a family or a spouse to go on this appointment, where we probably, if we were skilled better or had more positive impact or feeling about ourselves, we could probably reschedule that appointment so we could accomplish both, meeting with the family for dinner or whatever it is, and also finding another time for that client to be with them.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because we can, especially with real estate, you're not working a 9-to-5 kind of job.
Right.
Your hours can vary, and you can make your schedule, and you can set it how you want. I did last month's call, or just a couple of weeks ago. I talked about how to have a life and still have a great real estate business. And part of that, we talked about voicemail, real-time voicemail, things like that. So there, you can set expectations for when you're available to work, and I think most people will respect that. So yeah, just because the phone rings doesn't mean that you have to automatically just jump up and run out, and that may not be the best for your family, and it may not even be the best for your business if you think about it. How you want to run your business. Yeah, that's a good point. And then from the next priority, again, this will vary for different people. He has friends in here after family. The friends would be the next priority, and building and developing those relationships with friends. You mentioned having an inner circle of friends, and maybe you have a group of friends or a few friends that you're really close with, and how to develop that and maintain that as a priority is important too. So he has a quote here: "My goal is to make every encounter I have with my friends a perfect moment for them and for me." So to do this, you need to be intentional and really make developing those friendship as a priority as well. So he has next here career is comes down here. So we're down to, I don't know, number 5 or 6, and career is coming in there. Finances he has next, and any other priorities you would that we didn't mention that you would think should be in that list?
I was going to say church. Sometimes, I mean, we are involved in our church, and it is a priority in our life, and yet you do have to, I don't know, think about the balance. Sometimes you might be so focused on what activities at church that, I don't know. I guess it could, I don't know, just a sort of a balance kind of a thing with that. But that could be one of your priorities. I know we have God first, but I think of when I say a God is a priority, that was more of one on a personal level than church is like a social plus, you know, a God thing too. But sometimes that can get in the way of your other, you know, priorities. And I don't mean it's in a negative way. I just mean that sometimes you have to be careful not to overschedule so many things at church that you don't have time for important things like being with.
You could burn out. You could burn out your from being in church too much.
Right, right.
Yeah, you're right.
Unfortunately, that can happen.
Yeah, you could overcommit to doing too many things. Yeah, doing too many things or being involved. Yeah, it can turn a positive into a negative if you're.
Right, right.
And that does happen in, you know, in churches and things like that. Yeah, so that could be a priority. He has in here ministry, so maybe it's some ministry that you have in your church or organization that you're involved with or what have you. That could be one of the priorities that you would put in there in the list. Yeah. All right, so we are almost out of time. So what I'm going to do, because we're kind of almost out of time here for today, we'll pick up. Next month will be the second Tuesday of the month, same time, 1 o'clock, and we'll talk about the next step, which will be action plans. And then what I'm going to do is actually email this out to you, so you'll have this PDF here, and this will give you. You can just print this out. It's about 20, I don't know, maybe about 30 pages or so. You can print this out, maybe more, 50 pages, and it'll give you basically all the information that we just went over today. You can look ahead into the next step too, into those action plans. And I want to challenge you, if you read through this before the next time, and if you're able to, set a day aside where you can actually go through this and go through the process of doing the life plan, and then maybe we can gather back a month from now and just kind of review, see what we learned. We'll go through it and have a time of discussion of the life plan. So I hope this was helpful. Any questions before we wrap it up?
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. I hope this gets you thinking, and I like to go through this time of year especially. And I'm going to switch back to the camera. So you can also pick up Michael Hyatt's book here, the Living Forward book, and be a good resource to read. And I'll email out that PDF, and we'll talk again next month. Have a great day.
Right.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.